Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Tuesday Night Leadership Development Training. My name is Jessica Hill, and before we hear from tonight's incredible trainer, it is time for our Elevate and Execute tip. Tonight's Elevate and Execute tip is this: finish what you start. Starting something new can be exciting. We set the goal, make the plan, and we're ready to go. But then life happens. Things get busy, challenges come up, the excitement starts to wear off, and sometimes it becomes easier to move on to something else than to finish what we started. One thing I've learned is that starting takes courage, but finishing takes commitment. I know for myself, I can get excited about a new goal or a new idea, but I've also learned that starting something isn't the same as completing it. Sometimes the biggest growth happens when the excitement wears off and you make the decision to keep going anyway. Finishing doesn't mean everything has to go exactly as planned. It means you stay committed, you adjust when necessary, you learn along the way, and you keep moving forward until you complete what you set out to do. So this week, think about something you've started that you haven't finished. Maybe it's a goal. Maybe it's a commitment you made to yourself. Maybe it's something you've been saying, I'll get back to that. Whatever it is, maybe this is the week to pick it back up and finish what you started. Because every time you follow through on a commitment, you're building discipline, confidence, and trust in yourself. And speaking of commitment, consistency, and leadership, tonight we are honored to hear from someone who continues to demonstrate what staying committed to growth and investing in others can produce. Coach Seymour Greenidge Blake consistently leads by example through mentorship, servant leadership, and a genuine desire to help others succeed. As a multiple six-figure earner and respected leader, he has inspired and developed countless people, both personally and professionally. And I know tonight's training is going to bring tremendous value to everyone on this call. So wherever you're joining from tonight, lean in, remove distractions, and get ready to take notes. It is truly my honor and privilege to introduce a multiple six-figure earner, Coach Seymour Greenidge Blake.
Thank you, Jessica, for that introduction. And again, once again, thank you, Coach Marcus, for bringing this together every week for us to basically every day for us to get on here and become family and come and learn together. Jessica, all I can say is wow, because your topic is going to lean into what my topic is all about tonight. And it's amazing how we don't communicate with each other about what we're going to talk about, because I plan my stuff a week. Like when I get off the call, I plan my call for the following week. And then throughout the week, I sit and I put things together and then put it all together on Monday for what I'm going to do on Tuesday. And the topic that you just talked about going to mix right in with the topic that I'm bringing to you guys tonight. So like I say, every day, every week, I'm hoping to reach at least one person on this call. And my goal is to reach all of you on the call, but at least one person I'm hoping that needed to hear what we talk about every Tuesday when it comes to self-development. So with that said, I'm gonna go ahead and get started so we can get this over with before the night is out, so everybody can get back to what they need to do. Let me start by saying I'm Coach Seymour Greenidge Blake, TGB Enterprise CEO. Tonight, or should I say good evening to everyone first off. Tonight, I want to have a different kind of conversation with you guys. It isn't about another conversation about just success. This isn't about getting you excited for an hour and then watch that excitement disappear tomorrow morning. Tonight, I want to talk to you about something much more personal. I want to talk to you about the agreement that you made with yourself when you decided that there was something more that you wanted out of your life. So tonight's topic is stop negotiating with the person you said you wanted to become. Let me say that again. I want you to stop negotiating with the person that you said that you wanted to become. Why? Because that agreement, you made it to yourself, not somebody else. You made that agreement to yourself. Okay? Somewhere along the way, you saw a different version of yourself. Maybe you saw yourself healthier. Maybe you saw yourself financially stronger. Maybe you saw yourself becoming a leader, building a business, writing a book, sometime maybe even repairing a relationship. You saw yourself traveling, becoming more disciplined, or you simply woke up every morning proud of the person looking back at you in the mirror. But here's the question I want you to think about tonight. And I want you to seriously think about this question tonight. What happened to that person? And family, I'm not asking what happened to your dream. I'm asking you what happened to the person that you said you were going to become to accomplish that dream that you have. Because those two things are different. See, we spend so much time talking about what we want that we sometimes forget that every significant goal requires us to become someone capable of carrying it out. And every time that we know what the person will do, but we'll choose something different because it's easier, it's more comfortable, or sometimes even more convenient. Then we begin negotiating with our own future. See, when we negotiate, we say things like, I'll start tomorrow. Just this once. I know what I said, but right now I'm tired. We negotiate when we allow our feelings to overrule commitments that we made when we were thinking very clearly. And one negotiation, trust me, doesn't normally destroy a dream. And that's why negotiation can be dangerous. It is nothing dramatic that will happen. The world not going to stop, but one negotiation becomes two. Two becomes 10. 10 becomes a lifestyle. And then eventually, guess what happens? You're standing in the same place wondering why nothing has changed for you. So tonight, I'm asking you to do one thing. I'm asking you to put everything else aside mentally and have an honest conversation with yourself. I don't want you to think about what your spouse needs to change. I don't want you to think about the children right now. Don't think about your business partner, your team, your boss, or even your friends. Because tonight is about you. It's about you. Because there's a person that you once told yourself you were going to become. And tonight we're going to find out whether you're still committed to meeting that person or not. Understand that you made a promise before you made a plan. You made a promise to yourself. Because before most people ever create a plan, something happened internally inside of them. They reach a moment where they say, I can't keep living like this. Understand that sometimes it comes from frustration. Sometimes it comes from inspiration. Sometimes, even after looking at your finances, your health, your relationship, your career, or even your future, and you realize that something has to change. The moment matters because before the calendar, before the goal, before the vision boards, and before the strategies that you made a promise to yourself. I want you to think about some of the promises that you made. It could be stuff like, I'm going to get serious about my finances. I'm going to build this business. I'm going to stop wasting time. I'm going to finish what I started. It could be, I'm going to become more disciplined. Understand that those statements, they weren't made to somebody else. They were made to you by you. And one of the most important relationships that you will ever have is a relationship between the person making those promises and the person responsible for keeping them. And here is where self development becomes deeper than motivation. Every single time that you keep a promise to yourself, you build evidence that you can trust yourself. When you say you're going to wake up and you wake up, that's evidence. And when I talk about waking up, I'm not saying you tell yourself you're going to wake up tomorrow because tomorrow is not promised. I'm talking about when you wake up, you tell yourself you're going to get out of that bed and you get out that bed. That's evidence. When you say that you are going to make the call, and guess what? You make it, that is evidence. When you say, I'm going to get up and go exercise, and you do it, that's evidence. When you say that you're going to save money, are you going to save money, and you do it, that's evidence. Because little by little, your mind begins learning something very powerful. When it say, I am going to do something, and you do it. Remember last week's topic about those two words, I am. But understand this, family. The opposite is also true. Every time you repeatedly break commitments to yourself, then you teach yourself not to take your own word seriously. That's why someone can have a beautiful vision board and still lack confidence. Because confidence isn't only believing you're talented. Part of confidence is trusting yourself. And self trust is developed when your behavior becomes matching to your commitment. So tonight, I want you to remember something. Your word to yourself has value. Treat it that way. Before asking anybody else to believe in your vision, become someone whose wants owns action. Demonstrate belief in that vision. Because everybody don't see your vision the way you see it. But for them to see it, you have to believe it. You have to see it. The negotiation usually sounds very reasonable sometimes. And here is what makes negotiations very dangerous. It really sounds like it rarely sounds like quitting. If the voice in your head simply said, give up on everything that you ever wanted, most of us will reject it. And we will do that immediately. Instead, negotiation sounds very reasonable, like I said. You worked hard yesterday. You got plenty of time. Nobody else is doing this much like you are. You deserve a break. How does that sound reasonable, don't it? But it's dangerous. Nobody else is doing this much. You deserve a break. Start Monday is when we'll do it. We'll wait until things settle down. It sounds logical enough that we don't recognize what is really happening, guys. So imagine you plan to get up early tomorrow morning to work on something that is very important. The alarm rings. Suddenly, there are two people having a conversation inside your head. The person you were last night says, get up. We have something to accomplish. But the comfortable version of you says, let's take 10 more minutes. I would just click the alarm and let it wait 10 more minutes and then comes back. But here, and that's where the negotiation begins. 10 minutes won't hurt, but 10 minutes isn't really the issue. The issue is who gets to make that decision. This happens everywhere. See, you plan to exercise, but you're tired. You plan to make 5 calls, but 2 people didn't answer, and now you don't feel like continuing those other calls. You plan to save money, but something caught your eyes and you went spend it. You plan to work on your business, but social media suddenly became more interesting to you. Every one of those moments is a tiny courtroom where you present comfort will start to argue against your future intentions. I want you to understand rest is necessary. Understand that. Recreation is necessary. Changing the plan because new information requires it is also intelligent. That's not what I'm talking about when I say don't negotiate. I'm talking about knowing exactly what needs to be done and repeatedly finding reason not to do it. See, there's a major difference between intentionally adjusting your plan and habitually escaping your commitment. So the next time you hear yourself beginning to negotiate, start recognizing it. Don't automatically obey every thought simply because it came from your mind. Ask yourself, is this a legitimate reason to change the direction? Or am I trying to make myself comfortable with breaking another promise? Think about that for a second. See, your feelings get a voice, not the not the final vote. Okay, your feelings do. One of the biggest mistakes that we make in self development is believing successful people always feel like doing what needs to be done. But believe me, they don't. Discipline exists precisely because motivation fluctuates. And if you only do something when you feel inspired, then your feeling becomes a manager of your future. See, there are mornings when you are going to wake up feeling unstoppable. And I know some of us do on this call. Take advantage of those mornings because there also are going to be mornings when you don't feel like doing anything. Those mornings matter even more. Why? Because that's when your identity is being tested. See, anybody can move when the emotion is strong, but development occurs when you can still move when emotion isn't comparing. See, your feelings are real and they deserve acknowledgement. If you're exhausted, acknowledge it. If you're disappointed, acknowledge it. If you're afraid, acknowledge it. If you're frustrated, acknowledge it. But acknowledgement and authority are different things. You can say, I'm nervous about making this call and make the call anyway. See, you can say, I'm tired today and still complete the essential commitment that you plan on doing. You can say, I don't feel confident and still walk into that room. That's maturity. See, maturity isn't becoming emotionless. It's developing the ability to make decisions that serve your values, even when your emotions are pulling into another direction. See, because sometimes the most powerful sentence that you can say to yourself is, I hear how I feel, but I also remember what I decided. The person that you want to be or to become isn't waiting for you to stop having emotions. That person is waiting for you to stop requiring every emotion to give you permission, to stop falling in love with your potentials. See, potential is one of the most seductive words in personal development. See, people love hearing you have so much potential that it starts to feel good to you. But potential by itself doesn't produce anything. See, potential is simply unused capacity. Eventually, you'll have to stop celebrating that you could become what you could become and begin producing evidence of what you are becoming. So you can be potentially ready to write a book and never write the first page. You can potentially become financially independent and never change your spending habits. You can potentially build a great business and never consistently talk to customers. You can potentially become healthier and never change your routine. Understand that potential gives you permission to imagine the destination without requiring you to walk that road. At some point, you have to decide that you're tired of being introduced to your potentials. You want to meet your results. You want your calendar to show your commitment. You want your habits to show your commitment. You want your decisions to show your commitment. And you want your evidence of your life to begin matching the language of your vision. So ask yourself tonight, am I in love with the idea of who I could become? Or am I committed to the process required to become that person? Those are not the same things, guys. One gives you temporary emotional high, while the other requires repetition, patience, sacrifice, adjustment, and discipline. See, because your potential isn't going anywhere, but neither is it going to develop itself for you. You have to turn possibilities into practice. Understand that your old self knows all of your passwords. What do I mean by that? Because this is very interesting about changing your life. See, the old version of you knows everything about you. It knows what frustrates you, what distracts you, what excuses have worked for you before. Your own self knows what makes you comfortable. It knows exactly what to say when you're about to change. That's why transformation sometimes feels like an internal battle. See, understand that you, not nobody else, you can change your environment, your clothing, your business, your phone number, and your social circle. But if you carry the same internal patterns everywhere that you go, eventually you regret the same results in a different location. The old version of you, necessarily evil or bad, in many cases, it was simply built for a different season of your life. See, certain habits has helped you survive something, right? Certain beliefs protected you. Certain behaviors kept you very comfortable. But what protected you in one season can restrict you in another. See, growth sometimes required thanking an old version of yourself for getting you this for, and then refuse to let that version drive anymore. You don't have to hate who you were to become someone different. You simply have to recognize that the person who brought you here may not possess every skill required to take you there. And once you start learning and understanding that, you will move forward. See, when those old patterns come knocking, I want you to remember familiarity doesn't equal destiny. Just because you always responded to a certain way does not mean that you're required to respond that way tomorrow. See, you should know that the person that you want to become has to have a schedule. Everybody talks about dreams. Let's talk about Tuesdays. What does the person you say you want to become do on an ordinary Tuesday? Let me answer that question for you. You get on this call. That is where transformation becomes real. Not New Year's Day, not your birthday, not the day you launched the business, not the day everybody's watching. I'm talking about ordinary Tuesdays when nothing exciting is happening, but you get on this call. What time does that person get up? How does that person speak? What does that person eat? What does that person study? Who does that person call? And when I say that person, I'm talking about you, talking about me. How does that person respond when disappointed? What does that person do with an unexpected hour? What does that person do with an unexpected $100? What does that person do when nobody's watching? See, we often imagine our future identity through major accomplishments, but major accomplishments are normally built through ordinary behaviors, repeated long enough. See, the future CEO still has to answer emails. The future author still has to sit down and write. The healthier person still has to make a decision at dinner. The stronger relationship still require conversation. The successful entrepreneur still has to follow up. So don't just describe your future life, describe your future Tuesday. And when I say that, I mean describe your future self-development. Then begin practicing it now. One of the biggest things that we have to start doing is we got to start raising our standards before we raise our goals. What do I mean by that? See, sometimes people don't need another goal, okay? They need new standards. See, a goal may say things like, this is what I want, but standards will say, this is what I accept from myself. There is a major difference between saying I want to become successful and saying I no longer allow myself to repeatedly abandon what I start. There's a difference between saying I want better health and saying take care of my body because it's now part of who I am. There's a difference of saying I want financial freedom and saying I'm becoming intentional about what I do with my money. See, goals can stay in the future forever, but standards operate today. Your standards affect what time you get up, what you tolerate, who gets access to you, how you communicate, what you consume, how you work, and what you do after disappointments. And here is the powerful part. When your standards change, many decisions start to disappear. You don't have to debate yourself every time because you have already decided who you are. See, the negotiation becomes shorter. Why? Because the standard has already answered those questions. Don't only ask yourself tonight, what do I want? Ask, what must become normal for me if I'm serious about getting it? That's the question you need to ask. And another big thing that we got to stop doing, we got to start requiring an audience. One of the strongest indicators of a personal development is what you do when nobody knows that you're doing it. See, we live in a world where everything can be posted, announced, photographed, recorded, liked, shared, celebrated. But some of the most important work that you will ever do receive absolutely no applauses. Nobody may applaud for reading instead of scrolling. Nobody may know that you saved the money. Nobody may see you exercising early in the morning. Nobody may know that you practice your presentation 20 times. Nobody may know that you stayed up studying. And nobody may know that you resisted returning to an old habit. But you know who knows? Your future. See, you didn't need applause for every seed that you planted because farmers don't dig up seeds every morning to see whether they are growing. They just continue watering the ground because they understand that invisible progress is still in progress. So become comfortable developing privately because eventually what you have built privately will introduce itself publicly. See, your environment is always having a conversation with you. Because self development isn't only about willpower, guys, because environment matters. Everything around you is communicating with you. Everything. The people around you, the content you consume, your workspace, your routines, and even what you keep within easy reach can either support the person that you are becoming or it can continuously invite the old person back. So, if you're constantly surrounded by conversation that mock ambition, eventually that ambition will begin feeling strange. If everyone around you normalize quitting, perseverance become looking extreme. But when you're around people who is learning, building, growing, and taking responsibility, then growth begins feeling normal. This doesn't mean that I'm abandoning everyone who isn't chasing your goals. That does not what that means. It means becoming intentional about influences. See, you can love somebody without allowing them and their limitation to become instructions for your life. I want you to look around your environment and ask yourself whether it agrees with your future. Does what you watch agree with it? Does what you read agrees with it? Do your daily conversation agrees with it? Does your calendar agrees with it? See, you don't need a perfect environment before you can see success. But what you do need is you don't continuously build an environment that forces your discipline to fight unnecessary battles. I want you to start becoming the person who finishes. Because I understand this. Starting is exciting, but finishing is transformational. Everyone on this call, I want you to think about how many things people start. They start diets, businesses, books, courses, saving plans, exercise program. Everybody started that the first of the year. I'm gonna lose weight. I'm gonna get on a diet. I'm gonna be healthier. That's my New Year's resolution. That's what everybody starts saying. I'm gonna start a new relationship, projects, challenges, new routines. The beginning usually has energy because the beginning contains possibility. How many of you were excited the first time you joined and heard about green organics? The question is that excitement still in you? Because after the excitement, guess what comes? The middle part of it comes. See, and the middle part of it isn't exciting. The middle is repetitive. The middle is where results sometimes move slow. The middle is where nobody is congratulating you anymore. The middle is where your original emotion has worn off and the finish line still seems very far away. See, that's where you have to become a finisher. A finisher doesn't mean someone who never changes strategy. Sometimes intelligent people change direction. See, a finisher is someone who doesn't habitually abandon meaningful commitments simply because the emotional excitement has disappeared. See, finishing changes your identity. Every completed commitment becomes evidence. I can trust myself to stay with something, and that evidence becomes confidence that you can carry into the next challenge. Stop waiting for a new year to become a new you. Stop. See, we give dates too much power. Monday, January 1st, next month, after vacation, after the holidays, after things calms down. We act as this transformation requires permission from the calendar. See, but your life changes the moment your decision becomes stronger than your delay. You can make a difference. Decision at 2:17 on Wednesday afternoon. You can restart after a bad morning. You can correct your direction after making a mistake. You don't have to actually throw away an entire day because 1 hour didn't go according to the plan. This is especially important because perfectionism often disguises itself as discipline. See, someone misses one workout and says, I'll restart Monday. Someone overspend once and abandon the budget. Someone misses a business goal and stop making calls. That's another negotiation, people. Learn the power of the next decision. You cannot change the decision that you made an hour ago, but the next decision is still yours. Understand that your future self is being created right now. Right now. So I want everybody tonight, I want you to imagine meeting yourself 5 years from now. Not somebody else, okay? You. Same name, same history, but 5 years of decisions have passed. What would that person thank you for? What would that person thank you for doing tonight? Would they thank you for finally starting? Would they thank you for walking away from something that was keeping you stuck? Would that person thank you for getting serious about your health? Would that person thank you for saving, learning, building, forgiving, creating, becoming disciplined? And when I say that person, I'm talking about you. Now I want you to imagine the opposite conversation. What would that future version of you wish you had taken seriously sooner? That is a very uncomfortable question, but it's also powerful because 5 years is coming regardless, finally. It's coming. So the future isn't some mysterious location waiting for you. Your construction, you construct it. Every repeated decision is a brick. Every habit is a brick. Every relationship is a brick. Every investment in yourself is a brick. Be careful what you're building simply because you can't see the finished structure yet. Be careful. Understand that you don't have to become everything today, tonight. You don't have to become everything today. I want to make this clear because sometimes personal development can create unnecessary pressure. Becoming better doesn't mean transforming every area of your life overnight. That's another trap that we fall into. You don't need 20 new habits tomorrow morning. You need enough consistency with a few meaningful changes that those changes begin becoming part of your identity. Sustainability development isn't about creating a life so demanding that you quit in 3 weeks. Okay? Ask yourself, what's one behavior that will make several other things easier for me? Maybe it's waking up very early. Maybe it's planning tomorrow before you go to sleep tonight. Maybe it is exercising. Maybe it is reading 30 minutes. Maybe it's making business calls before checking social media. Start building evidence. Small promises keep consistently become something much bigger than self-respect. Now let's go talk about that mirror moment. We're getting to the part of tonight's conversation that only you can answer. Who do you say you want to become? Not what did you say you wanted to own, not how much money did you say that you wanted, not what car, what house, what title. Who do you say you wanted to become? Did you say you wanted to become disciplined, dependable, healthy, financially responsible, a better leader, a stronger parent, a better partner, a successful entrepreneur, someone who finishes, someone who will mean something to you in the future? Look at your current routine and ask yourself one question. Am I practicing becoming that person? Ask yourself that in the mirror. I don't want you to condemn yourself if the answer isn't completely yes, okay? This isn't about condemnation. Awareness will give you something more powerful, choice. And once you recognize the gap, then you can begin to close it. You can begin to close it. So it's time for you to end the negotiation. Because eventually there comes a moment when you have to stop discussing certain things with yourself. You decide. You said you wanted something different. You said you wanted growth. You wanted freedom. You wanted a better health. You said that you wanted a business. You wanted stronger relationship. You wanted the book. You said that you wanted the degree. You said you wanted peace. And stop making your future repeatedly defend itself against your comfort. See, when it's time to do what you committed to doing, Shorten the conversation. You don't need a motivational speech every single morning. You need a decision that has already been made. I said I was going to do it. Therefore, I'm doing it. That sentence, and that sounds exciting, but practiced consistently, it can change an entire life. Now let's go into the closing. It's time to meet the person that you've been talking about. So before we close tonight, I want you to think back to the beginning of this training. I asked you about the person you once said you wanted to become. Maybe somewhere doing tonight's conversation, you remembered that person. Maybe you realize that you have been postponing that person. Maybe you realize that you have been talking about that person for years. Here's what I want you to understand. That person isn't arriving one morning like a package at your front door. So you don't suddenly wake up disciplined. You practice discipline. You don't suddenly become confident. You accumulate evidence that you can trust yourself. You don't suddenly become successful. You build behaviors that eventually produce success outcomes. See, distance between who you are and who you want to become is crossed between through decisions. One decision doesn't usually complete the journey, but every decision that you cast a vote for that person and you're becoming. Every time you honor your commitment, you cast another vote. Every time that you get back up, another vote. Every time you finish something you will normally abandon, then that's another vote. So when you wake up tomorrow morning and that negotiation begins, I want you to remember tonight's call. Remember what you said that you wanted. Remember why you wanted it. And then ask yourself one question. What will the person I said I wanted to become do next? Then I want you to do that. Not next year, not next month, not next Monday, next. Because your future doesn't need another promise from you, okay? It needs evidence. Once again, I'm Coach Seymour Greenwich Blake, TGBC Enterprise CEO, and I want to leave you with this tonight. Stop negotiating with the person that you said you wanted to become. That person has been waiting long enough. Winning is my only option. Back to you, Jessica.
Wow. Wow. That was very powerful. And I know I know that touched a lot of people. I know it touched myself, touched me. To add on to that, I want to challenge everyone when you at night before you go to bed, I want you to look at yourself in the mirror and say to yourself, did I do something to become better than the person I was the day before? And if your answer is yes, then you know you are continuing to grow. Um, Coach Marcus, are we still having the Saturday training on the 22nd?
No,
No? Okay.
no, that's my Sabbath, and I figure the information I cover on Sundays that is what is will be covered on Sunday instead of spending 4 or 5 hours on a Saturday.
Okay. I wanted to make sure before I put it out. Okay. Coach Charlotte, you got anything you want to add? She's still, I think she's still here. It's probably probably in our mobile office, so I don't know if she can talk. Coach Marcus, you got anything you want to add?
No, nothing. I don't have anything to follow up with that. You can't top what you guys shared tonight. So it's all about, finishing what you start, and that your message relayed to me because when I lost my football scholarship when I flunked out. I had a 1.9 GPA. So you had to have a 2.0 to maintain the scholarship, and I flunked out because I got lazy, didn't go to class. I would hit the snooze button, and just go back to sleep. And by the time I took it seriously, it was too late for me to go back. I could have went to summer school and taken an easy class to get it to a 2.0, but by that time I didn't want to play anymore. So finishing what you start, that definitely is key to you know being successful, and always remember that time in my life when I failed, right?
Mhm.
I flunked out, and so embarrassing. My parents were embarrassed, they were upset, and ever since that time I never I told myself I would never not finish anything I started that was good. Okay, we want to stop the bad things we do. Eating too much. Staying up too late at night, being negative, cussing, drinking to excess, all that kind. So you stop that stuff. But the good things, I told myself I would never ever be in a situation like that again, which is part of the reason you guys see the person I am today. And so, but good messages. And like I said, Coach Seymour always enjoyed his message. And one of the keys to whatever you want to attain in life, you have to become that person first. Right. When I was not 297 pounds, I had to see myself not being called Big Marcus. Right. I had to see myself being called Slim. My nickname in college was Slim because I wasn't a big guy. And so I saw myself being a smaller version, which you guys see now as just the guy you call coach. So I saw myself being in shape and being fit before I lost almost 90 pounds. I saw myself being successful with Green Organics when I joined back in February. I knew I was going to be successful with it because it was free to sign up. And who can't sign up free people? Man, I gave away free accounts for 6 months. And I definitely can sign people up for free. As Zalara is even better because we can do the same thing with Zalara. So yeah, you have to see yourself, being that person you want to become before you become that person in real life, right? So you have to see it first. But that's all I had. Thank you, coaches. Thank Jessica. Thank you, Coach Seymour. Hey, today is Green Organics' 15-year birthday. The company launched on April 11th, 2011. Right, so it's the company's birthday today. So, but that's all I have, Jessica, and thanks.
You're welcome. And remember, people, if you surround yourself with positivity and find the positive in things, more positivity will come your way. If you surround yourself with negativity, more negativity will come your way. And also, I'm going to leave you with this tip because it's something I've taken myself. You are never too old to go after something you want to achieve, whether it be learning a skill, opening a business, whatever you want to do. Writing that book, like Coach Seymour said. But in order to do it, you got to see yourself doing it, and you got to make the change to do it. Because we all know what the definition of insanity is: doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results. Can't do that. That's all I got. Everyone have a safe and blessed evening. Thank you, Coach Seymour. And everyone stay safe. And for all those that are affected by the fires in Canada, to keep them in your prayers. I think it's impacting Coach Kimberly. So just keep everyone that's affected by that in your prayers. That's all I got.
Thanks, everyone.
All right, good night, you guys.